In this video, I'm showing you how to mix a value scale fairly quickly, and this is really helpful when you're laying out your palette and laying out your values so that it's a lot more efficient to paint rather than each time you find a new color that you need having to stop and mix the color and mix the values. So it's a good habit to get into, to lay out your palette the same way this every time and to practice mixing your values fairly quickly. So here's a value scale. I'll show you how to paint one of these quickly after you do mix your values. So I'll use some phthalo blue, titanium white, and ivory black to show you how to mix a quick value scale. So here I have titanium white, phthalo blue, and ivory black. So the first thing I do is start with my local color, which is the main color. In this case, we're using phthalo blue. Phthalo blue is really strong. I could paint the whole town with just one little tube, it always seems like. So I'm going to lay out the color here, the main color, and I'm simply going to drag down the paint and leave the majority of it up here. Alright, so now I have my odorless thinner here and my paper towels. I always have paper towels handy. I can constantly wipe my palette knife off, dab the brush. I have my main color dragged down, and I will take some white here and I'll put the majority of the white, nice clean white, right down at the bottom. So I'm going to grab a little bit of white and I'm going to start right here. And that's pretty dark because phthalo blue is fairly strong. So I can mix a little bit more white in there. And then I simply take whatever's left in my palette knife and I move up the scale here. Now, technically, I should be using a whole lot more paint if I was actually doing a painting. If I went to the trouble to do this with not much paint, by the time I got around to paint, I wouldn't have much here to work with. So again, moving up the ladder here with whatever's in my palette knife. I'm going to take a tiny dot of white. So I'm getting a little bit darker as I go up here. Phthalo blue is so black straight out of the tube, or so dark, excuse me, straight out of the tube that it almost looks like black. So I'm getting pretty close up here to the darkest value, but I can take the original color. Here's the original value right here, the color straight out of the tube. Now before I mix the darker end of the value scale, I want to wipe any white off of my palette knife. So I'm going to take a little bit of black, and I can go a step darker by taking the phthalo blue and mixing the black here. Now down here, I'm fairly sure I can get a couple more values between pure white and this one, so I'm going to go ahead and move some pure white down here. And go ahead and take a little bit of this and just mix it here and see what I get. So I'm getting a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter. And wipe this off. And finally down here we have, whoops, the pure white. So I was able, with this color, to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 values. Some colors, it seems a little bit harder to get that many, but if I can get 4 to 5 values when I'm painting, it just speeds up my process of quickly grabbing the value that I need to mix my color. So if you want to make your own color charts, you simply proceed with a nice brush and start with your widest end and just paint nice little sections. You can do rectangles or squares, and you just keep picking up the next value I'm using a filbert brush right here, so it's a little bit round on my edges. A flat brush actually might work a little bit better to make corners. But I'll continue here with this. That's a pretty big jump right there. I probably could have gotten another value in between there. Now, as I'm getting darker, I probably want to rinse the brush, dab it here, and continue. Getting darker. Also getting bigger. And finally we have the darkest. And there we go. There is a value scale.